You're listening to the Staging Sips podcast with Lori Fisher. This podcast is dedicated to helping real estate staging CEOs build healthy businesses that grow, flow, and thrive. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so happy to be with you. And do you believe, I think I'm a little incensed by this. I'm a little outraged that at the time that you're receiving this recording, it is about to be quarter four of 2023. Like, where in the actual heck did this year go? I do not even get it. So we are headed into the end of 2023. And I figured this is a great time for us to go through a business planning session and discuss how I think about planning in my staging business and how you can roll it out in your own if you don't already have a system. So if you have a system, maybe there's something in here that you might find useful or helpful or just a different thought process as you go into planning. So let's dive into all the goods on that. So one of the things I want to share with you is that when I do quarterly planning, so like I said, we're in Q4 of 2023 at the time of this recording. If I'm going to sit down for a planning day, which you should put on your calendar, if I'm going to sit down for a planning day for the next 90 days, I'm actually not planning for the quarter that I am headed into directly. I am planning for the one right after it. So when I sit down for my quarterly goal setting this week, that goal setting is going to be looking at what do I want to accomplish by the end of quarter one in 2024. So what goals do I want to accomplish by the end of March of 2024? Oh my goodness, this is crazy, right? But anyway, the reason that I do that is because when I set a goal that I want to accomplish at the end of quarter one of 2024, if I'm sitting down today or this week to plan for that, there are likely things that I can do in the next 90 days to get me ready to accomplish that goal, like to really set myself up for success. Because one of the things that we can do sometimes is we can use our goal planning to beat ourselves up. So I like to give myself the very best chance of actually accomplishing what I want, because what I do know is that most of us underestimate how long something's going to take. So I automatically plan for that in my goal setting by not planning for the next 90 days. And in particular, because we are talking about Q4 specifically in a business year, you've got all the holidays coming up and there's lots of time off. And even though you probably, are heading into a quieter time in your staging business and you have more time to accomplish things, it's not the most ideal time, quarter four, to be trying to knock out some big goal for yourself, unless you plan for it in quarter three and you're already primed and ready to go for it. So I hope that makes sense to you. So your goal setting is primarily targeting two things in your business. So when you sit down, if you don't actually know what your goal is for your 90-day plan, you can consider two things. The first is, what are issues that you are having repeatedly in your business? That is a great place to start trying to set a goal around cleaning that up. And if you need some help in the process that we go through in our business, the Fix It protocol, that is in episode 26. So go back and listen to that to give you some sense of what are some of the steps you could take in your goal setting to solve a problem in your business. Because essentially, goals are very often going to be solving for problems. So that's the first thing you can consider for your goals. The second one would be something that you are successful at that you want to turn the volume up on. And how could you do that? So say in your business, you have a revenue goal of X and you look at your service mix and you say, okay, the service that generates the most revenue is this service. And then you kind of evaluate, is it profitable? That's another kind of part of it. But if that is the one that we book the most often and we've got a decent profitability on it, how can we turn up the volume on getting more of those? Or maybe you're launching something new and you want to turn up the volume on whatever that new service is. What are the steps you're going to take? So those are really the two things that you're going to focus on as part of your goal setting. What are the problems that you need to solve for in your business, and or how can you turn up the volume on something that you're already doing well or is already successful or you want to launch? Okay. So let me take you through the 5 steps that I do when I'm choosing that. I choose 3 goals, and that's what I start with. I only focus on 3 goals. The reason for that, again, is because we want to be able to focus our energies. I remember back when I sold pharmaceuticals years ago, I had a manager that talked about it like one of those circus people that spin plates, and how they get one plate spinning and that gets going really well. And then they start spinning the next plate. So what you really want to be able to do is focus on getting just a few plates spinning really well. And you might have a plan to get something spinning really well that you want to get done in the next, in this quarterly planning session that you want to have up and running, that may need to stay on your goal sheets for the next several quarters until it is spinning really well. You want to keep diving in, because what happens as you refine and go through this goal setting process and you take action, you're going to start noticing areas where you're like, oh, I can make it even better this way. And then I can make it even better this way. Or, oh, we learned this that we need to tweak or shift a little bit. So the goal setting process is really dynamic. And so I want you to focus on just a few things. And I want you to not beat yourself up if you do not accomplish them. That is not what goal setting is about. Goal setting is just about giving you a compass for where you want to head. And you can set the final, accomplishment date over and over and over again until you get there. So don't feel like if you don't finish these goals by the end of Q1 of 2024 or whatever the quarter is that you're planning for at the time that you're listening to this, don't beat yourself up about it. You just stay focused on, this is the action I want to take. And I know that it's going to take as long as it takes. And I don't actually even know how long it will possibly take. I'm making my best guess. Okay. So all the caveats aside, all right, let's get into it. So you're going to identify your 3 main goals that you want to accomplish. The first thing is you want to set a target date for it. So if you are thinking that you want to plan for, again, we're going to plan for Q1 of 2024 at the time of this recording. Do you want it to be done by the end of January, end of February, end of March? That's typically what I do. I just give myself the end of the month. And that way, again, it's simpler for my brain. This is all about simplifying things for your brain, because our brains can really confuse us and get us stuck just so that we stay safe. Okay. So that's the first one. What is the accomplishment and what is the target date? The next thing that you want to answer for each one of those is, if you do this, what does the ideal outcome look like specifically? That specifically word is really important. So if, for example, I'll use my example of hiring a podcast manager. So I had wanted a podcast manager by the end of August of this year. So when I was planning for what does this actually look like specifically, my specific was that I record the podcast, I hand it off to that person, and then I don't touch it again. They use the Asana project management that we created internally as a team. They work with the team who gets all of the graphics done and all of the blogs done and all of the emails done. And that person quarterbacks the entire process. And all I need to do is focus on getting them the content in a timely manner. So that is what that looked like to me specifically. In addition, that person was going to be helpful, joyous, kind, fun. I had a very specific personality type I was looking for, but also holds me accountable. So I would say, and I know Deborah's listening to this, that I did a great job when it came to mapping out what this looked like and finding the person that fit that need, like a really good job. So, but it helped my brain to go, okay, this is what I'm looking for. And the other thing was, I didn't want them to produce the podcast. I have a podcast producer that I love, and a lot of people would produce the podcast. So that helped my brain say automatically, if somebody was a podcast project manager and they were offering production, I didn't want that. So that helped me also weed things out. Okay. That's step number 2. Step number 3, what steps will you take to achieve the goal? Break this down into micro tasks to avoid it being overwhelming. So let's talk about this. What will it, like, what are I call them fractions of actions. What are the fractions of actions that you need to take to get you here? So let's use the example of maybe it's inventory. Your inventory system is not complete, or you're having a struggle in the busy times of your business, managing what that process looks like to get things from D stage back onto the shelves in an organized way. So what are the fractions of steps that you can be taking in your business to fix that problem for when you are in your busy spring and fall seasons of your business? So that could look like, first of all, maybe it's implementing an inventory management system because you haven't done that yet. So what are the steps that are involved with that? So let's break that down. So the first one would be maybe researching what you need. So when we did this, I looked at various platforms. One of the things that I knew I wanted was I wanted something that we could scan with our phones, because sometimes you bring things to a site that you aren't sure if you're going to use them, and then you decide that you'll use them, and we hadn't scanned them because maybe they were accessories or something like that. I wanted people to be able to scan with their phones. I wanted everybody to have access to the scanning tool, as it were. That was one thing. Needed to have Wi-Fi access because we didn't have, or not need Wi-Fi access. My apologies, because in a lot of our vacant homes, there was no Wi-Fi available. So it had to be able to work sans being on Wi-Fi network. So that was another thing. So when I was doing my research, I knew I was looking for these various things. Next, it needed to be easy for my team who aren't super tech savvy to be able to implement. It needed to seem very straightforward and very simple to use. So, and I say that I love my team, by the way. just sometimes technology can be a challenge. So the fractions of actions looked like, first, researching that with those very detailed criteria. The second was, then how do we start with that? So in our business, we started with the big, easy things to put into our inventory system first, because I thought if we put everything in, first of all, that would be very overwhelming to do since we had, so much inventory. But also that I wanted my team to get used to scanning just a few items each time we were doing a job rather than scanning every item. So I wanted to think about that as well. The other thing that I wanted to have easier was that process of like checking things back in once they were destaged. If they had to check everything back in our inventory management system, because we just went 100% out the gate with tracking the all inventory every time, I think that would have been overwhelming. So I wanted the team to have, again, fractions of actions that they could take and repeat over and over again and get used to that over and over process until we move to the next thing. So for us, inventory management and what that worked out to be turned into a full year's worth of effort, because I did it so slowly, and maybe too slowly, but so slowly that my team was really set up for success. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So that was step number 3. What will it actually look like? And break it down into fractions of actions so that you can avoid overwhelm. You can avoid any of your team's overwhelm if you have team. List strategies. So the step 4, list strategies you can use to overcome any obstacles. So this is really, really important, because sometimes as we plan, we encounter things that we could not have anticipated. And if we have strategies or thoughts that we can intentionally create and plan for, should we meet up with an obstacle? Okay, so we'll do so much better. We will not give up. So, example, let's go back to the inventory management system. Say you decided that you wanted to implement the inventory management system and you wanted to implement it for, like everything in your business, for like all things. And you started to get into it and you're like, oh, wow, this is taking a lot longer. This is really challenging for the team. It could be that you start to inventory your accessories, and like cataloging all of that is just like way too confusing. You have way too many faux plans or whatever that looks like. You want to list a strategy where you're going to say, okay, if doing everything is so overwhelming here, what are the most important things for us to put into our inventory system? So when you think, or what are the easiest things? Maybe that's the better goal or obstacle to overcome. Like if some things are too difficult, what's an easier category? Like for us, one of the challenging categories, believe it or not, were our throw pillows. And the reason for the throw pillows being so challenging wasn't that the throw pillows are challenging, just how do we actually tag them in a way that is discreet and it doesn't, we don't have to worry about those showing. Like that was one thing that we had to end up problem solving for because it wasn't like the most straightforward for us. Now, maybe that's just because I don't know. I didn't have enough information, but that was a thing that was a little more tricky. So we just decided, even though we have a gazillion throw pillows and it would be great to put them in our inventory because you never know where one has landed, we might need to go back to the drawing board on this and find better labels or do a little more research on how other people are labeling them and that kind of thing. So that's an example. So listing any strategies and I would say thoughts that you can use to overcome obstacles, because sometimes the issue isn't even logistics. It's more your brain. So you might get into planning for, say you're launching a new service and you create your marketing, you create a series of ideas, that you can use for marketing, and you want to plan for, well, what happens if we don't see any traction? What happens? Like, what are the thoughts I'm going to prepare myself for? And that might be something like, I just need, your thought could be, okay, we just need to take more time to get better at communicating the value of this, or communicating the steps of this, or communicating, or refining who the ideal client is, or refining who we're not, marketing to, like any of that. So you want to list those things out. Okay. So we are at what's the accomplishment you want to create and what's that target date? What does the ideal specifically look like? The ideal outcome? What steps will you take to achieve it, and break it down into your fractions of actions? Then listing the strategies you can overcome, like if you have to overcome any obstacles. And then the last thing, the fifth thing is, what will be your first action steps? So by taking the first action step, the next step will become so much clearer. So again, what's the first action step? So if we're going back to the inventory system, it might be researching inventory systems, reaching out in the Facebook groups about who's using what tool, why do they like it, and then kind of doing your due diligence around that. It could be if you're working on what's the first step of, I'll go back to my example about pillows or rugs or whatever. What is the best way? Like, what are the tags that we can use to stick to those better? Where do people place them? Again, you can do, like, due diligence is often the first step. Like, research can be the first step. Or it could be, I'm going to brainstorm a bunch of ideas for the ideal client that I think could benefit from this service. And I'm going to brainstorm all of the ways that this service can help those people, right? So you'll go through a brainstorming session. Sometimes your first step will be just taking action. So it could be hiring somebody, like if you are looking to increase your warehouse space, maybe it's hiring a realtor or researching a realtor and hiring a realtor to help you guide you in what that looks like. So those are the 5 steps for goal setting. Again, I'm going to list them again, but then you can get a free resource that if you just want this in a little nice, neat little worksheet, you can go to rethinkhomeInteriors.com/goals and get your own copy of that. Okay. So again, steps are, what would you like to accomplish in the next 90 days? And what's that target date? If you do this, what does the ideal outcome look like specifically? What steps will you take to achieve this and those fractions of actions? What are you going to do if you have any obstacles in getting to this goal? And what are the first action steps you will take? And then of course, it's all the managing your mind that goes along with that. And just knowing that this is a compass, this is to help organize your brain around just a few plates to get spinning. And this is not meant in any way for you to get to the end of the 90 days. If you haven't accomplished your goal, to beat yourself up. It's to look back and go, look at how far I've come because I had a plan. Okay, everybody, that is your sip for the week. I will see you next time and have a wicked good week. Bye for now. Thank you so much for listening to the Staging Sips podcast. If you love what you've learned here today and you want to go deeper and learn even more about how to market and grow your staging business more strategically, I would love for you to join us inside of the Rethink You Accelerate Mentorship Program. To get more details and get yourself on the wait list, you can go to rethinkhomeInteriors.com/waitlist. Looking forward to seeing you inside.